Well, look who has joined us. Bernie Fratto. You hear him hosting straight out of Vegas on Fox Sports Radio, 11 p.m. to midnight on the West Coast on Saturday nights. It is our guy from Vegas who always brings it strong. I'm Brian Fenley. I get to work with Bernie on Saturday nights. It's some of the best time that I will ever have in radio. The guy is as witty, as wise, and as shrewd as anybody in the business. Bernie is on Twitter at Bernie Fratto. Thanks so much, Bernie, for doing this.
Hey, thanks, Brian. You want to be my agent?
Did I mention he's a funny guy, and he is he'll go and speak at any function you have as a speaker.
That's right.
He's really good at that. He really is. Bernie, you are into the teeth of Vegas and the sports handicapping world. When is a time in your life that you took the biggest gamble on yourself?
Well, that's a really tough question. I think probably when I moved to Michigan in 1993, had an opportunity, had two young kids. I'm a California native, actually born in Michigan. My mom went to the University of Michigan, but I had an opportunity to come up in 1993 that I couldn't pass up. It was a little scary, right? I always thought California was the center of the universe. And what's interesting is if I hadn't done that, we might not be talking today.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, because I graduated from college with a degree in communications, emphasis in journalism and public relations. But I didn't get into radio until 1994. So I took the road less traveled. I didn't have the awareness, the consciousness, what I would consider to be the maturity, the development, to know how much I enjoyed doing this. I could write, and I always would hold court, kind of like Jeff Foxworthy did at his jobs. But the big change for me happened in 1991. I used to watch a show called The Sports Reporters, hosted by Dick Schaap, Mitch Albom, all of it. You may have heard of it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, at the end they did a thing called Parting Shots. So I always love that part. It's just a 90-second vignette. And Jeremy Schaap, who's a friend of mine to this day, they rekindled it right before COVID, and they were doing a similar type of a show, but be that as it may. So I actually picked up the phone one day and called Dick Schaap and said, Dick, I've been an inveterate Dick Schaap fan since Earl Warren presided over the Supreme Court. I've read 28 of your 34 books. I want to write these. I really did this. I want to write these parting shots. He goes, why not? Here's my fax number. So I started sending them, and he started using them.
Wow.
Became friends, and then we started to correspond on projects. And then I moved to Michigan. When I got to Michigan, I was driving down M14 toward Ann Arbor one day, headed to the U of M. And I heard this guy telling this story about the origins of the ballpark at Camden Yards. I said, he's screwing this story up. I can do better than this. And so what I started to do was write features for WTK in Ann Arbor. Armed with my experience with Dick Schaap, I approached them, and I got lucky. I gave them a tape, and they liked it, and we created a feature called The Sports Angle, which later became Inside the Fratto House, and I had well over 500 of them air. So all of a sudden, I'm on the radio now, and I'm working with Dick Schaap, and one thing led to another. And so I got on the air in June of 94 in Ann Arbor, and lo and behold, what happened? That's when the baseball players announced they were going to strike in August if they didn't get their deal. So I'm finding myself, I'm covering baseball, so on and so forth, and I covered the strike. And I got my first credential on June 17th, 1994.
Wow.
Now, why is that significant? That's the day of the white Bronco chase.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the press box at the old Tiger Stadium, and it was the first year they'd installed monitors. And so the monitors were supposed to be watching the game. And we're not watching the game, we're watching the Bronco chase, except they kept cutting in to a certain LAPD high-ranking official by the name of David Gascon. And I told David Gascon the story of it. So yeah. My first night with a credential, there's David Gascon, except we don't have volume. So we don't know what he's saying. So but when I got home that night at 11:30, the first thing I did was watch it, and the rest is history. But from there, things picked up, and I got to do more and more and more, for the station. Yeah. Covering baseball. Then I approached them with an idea in '96. I wanted to create my own radio show. So I created a Sunday radio show called The View from the Chief Seats, and it took off. and had a good 4-year run. And along the way, I met Rob Parker, and next thing you know, I'm working at CBS Radio in Detroit with Rob Parker, doing Lions pre and post game show, covering the 2006 World Series, 2005 All-Star Game, the NBA Finals with the Pistons, the Red Wings, Michigan football, Michigan State football, and that continued all the way through 2008. I tell people the 10 years I covered the Lions, I saw everything. My first year was Barry Sanders' last year, and my last year was when they went 0-16 under Rob Marinelli. And then fate intervenes, and I have an opportunity to come to Las Vegas. And I've been visiting Las Vegas all my life, felt like I knew the city, and moved here in February 2010, couldn't pass it up. And at the time, my daughter was actually playing soccer for UNLV. She's a very good soccer player, division player. And I latched on with ESPN 1100 out here in Las Vegas right away, co-hosted shows, and did the Runnin' Rebels pre- and post-game show, Rebel Extra, for 7 years. And worlds collided because I knew RJ Bell for 7, 8, 9 years, Rob Parker 25 years, and I'd gotten to know Scott Shapiro. And I planted a seed, and lo and behold, in September of 2018, just had my 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, the planets aligned, and Scott called me on a Thursday, and I had my guns loaded. He says, "Can you do a show this Saturday? We're going to create a Saturday edition of Straight Out of Vegas because the weekday shows do well." And I jumped in, and here we are ever since. And that's a really quick Cliff Notes version, leaving out a lot, of course.
Given your time in Vegas and knowing that you take the temperature of the betting world, what is the biggest bet somebody's placed on a game where they've hit?
There have been multiple bets where there have been $1 million result.
Wow.
But typically not because they bet $1 million, Brian. Okay. What'll happen is you'll find someone with long odds on a horse race or a long shot hockey team or that soccer team a few years ago that was 5,000 to 1. Typically that happens, okay? For the most part, bettors lose. Let's face it. Most bettors get high making the bet. They don't get high winning the bet. They're action junkies. Betting, is an activity that people enjoy because it enhances the viewing participation of their sport. It feeds their competitive spirit. Most bettors are upwardly mobile, educated, they have money, most. And so it's not necessarily always about how much can they win, but they just like to get down on a game and have action. There are limits here in Vegas. You just can't walk into a book and bet $1 million on a game. Depending on the sport, depending on the season, an NFL preseason game might have a $500 limit. An NFL regular season game might have a $50,000 limit. So a lot of sophisticated bettors and syndicates employ runners. And so they might get 10, 20, 30, 40,000 in 10 different casinos. So you never know exactly how much they have, but there have been people that have won north of $1 million based on betting long shots.
Bernie Fratto is with us. Catch him on Fox Sports Radio, 11 p.m. to midnight on Saturdays. Straight Out of Vegas is his show. I'm Brian Fenley. I'm on Twitter at Brian Fenley. Then you alluded to this, Bernie, but your relationship with Rob Parker goes way back to your Michigan days. And what you also notoriously were a part of was the Lions postgame show for several years in the 2000s. And you are, during that time, assuming you are building that relationship up with Rob. And now you guys have sort of a reunion here at Fox Sports Radio. Rob has the big shtick with Tom Brady right now and LeBron James. What was his big shtick when you met him? What was the one trademark take that he had that stuck with him through those years?
Well, the biggest one in Rob's tenure in Detroit was Matt Stafford and the Lions. He's always thought Matt Stafford was overrated. He's not wrong. Matt has a 6-54 record against teams who finished above 500. And Rob jokes, that the Lions fans are in love with Matt Stafford because he gives them the best chance to go 7-9 every year. But let me just change that a quarter turn, because when Rob gets his mind on something, forget it. Okay, so Rob and I first met. We were just kibitzing in Rob will tell you this. He was in the visitors' dugout at Tiger Stadium in 1995, and I was talking about the fact that I thought the Seattle Mariners were loaded and they could finish the job. And Rob goes, no way, no how. They don't have the postseason pitching. They'll get beat by the Yankees or somebody. And he ended up being right. But we had it was a spirited, fun, friendly argument. And he ended up being right. We ended up being friends. We started to do stuff on the radio then. And then it really picked up steam years later when Pete Rose wrote his book. And Rob says, forget it. Pete does not deserve to be in the Hall. It was one of those positions, right? Just like he's on Brady now and LeBron now. Yeah. He was on Pete Rose. What Rob likes to do, and people think he's doing it to be for a contrivance, and it's not. I'll give you an example. 2004, I was on the air with them. The Lakers were not they played the Pistons in the finals. I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
And everybody was calling sweep, right? Lakers sweep. Rob goes, nope. The Pistons will beat the Lakers. Everybody thought he was nuts. And you're just friends with Joe Dumars. He says, no. And we broke it down defensively, and I'll be damned, the Pistons beat him in 5 games.
That's right.
But in 2006, when the Tigers got to the World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals, everybody in town was bananas. We had a great time covering the World Series. And Rob was the killjoy. He said, nope, they're not beating the Cardinals. And the Cardinals beat him in 5. And Rob made more enemies because they thought he should just go on the air. And, I mean, everybody loves Rob, but you know what I mean, enemies in quotes.
Yeah.
And Rob goes, look, it's not my job to go on and ball wash the fans.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say what I believe. I'm not a hometown clown. Rob's a New Yorker. New York, they tell like it is. Detroit, they love their teams. Greatest sports town in America. You got 4 major league sports teams. You got 2 Big Ten teams right around the corner. They've all had their period in history. Detroit is not a transient town. I'm an anomaly. So was Rob. Rob was from New York. I was from California. Most people there are from there. They learn their sports. They're handed down. It's heresy if you say anything about the home team. So Rob did that early and often and endeared himself to people and also had a lot of people. Rob was a guy they loved to hate.
Well, that's part of the business. You want to create that controversy, which gets people talking about you. Why do you think, from all the years you've known Rob, Bernie, that he's been so successful? What is it about his candor and his style and just his wit around sports that is translated so well in sports media?
That's a simple one. First of all, Rob's one of the hardest working people you'll ever find. Rob, I can't tell you how many times I'm up at 6 a.m. and I get a text from Rob at 5:58. He's up early. He stays up late. He works hard. He does his homework. You see when he goes on with Colin and does those hits, Colin's complimenting him. It's for the reason he recognizes. It's the old game, recognize game. He sees this guy is really bringing it. But Rob brings the trifecta. He has TV chops, he has radio chops, and he has journalistic chops. Very few people, writing's a lost art. And Rob and I joke about that because I'm a journalist too. And so the ability to write, the ability to communicate, the ability to be a good wordsmith, understand syntax, sentence structure, all those things Rob has, and they translate well on TV and they translate well on radio. So you add up all 3, and then he's funny, right? I mean, humor to me is the great equalizer in sports. When I was growing up, why did I want to be in this business? Guys like Bob Costas, who I don't know him, but I sure have met him a few times. Just saw him at the press box at Fenway Park last September. Dick Schaap, Jim Lampley, guys that had broad range that could tell a story and entertain you and not just be a keen observer, but have the ability to weave a tale. There's an old saying, give me a fact, I'll learn it. Tell me the truth, I'll believe it. But share a great story, it lives in my heart the rest of my life. So Rob's a pretty good storyteller. Rob uses humor. And like I said, he's a journalist. He has TV chops and radio chops. Add it all up, and he's willing to work hard. And I mean, even in his spare time, what's he doing? He's teaching kids at USC. So he doesn't let any grass grow under his feet.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, that's the best advice I ever got in my life, whether it's in this business or not. It came from Dick Schaap, because Dick Schaap and I were very close. I sent you that letter he wrote about me. It's my most prized possession. When he and I were working, and I was, corresponding on material with him, and I said, I'm going to start to hang out a shingle and see if I can get a radio station to use my stuff. And I got really lucky. It took me like 30 days. But I was prepared for the long haul. He says, just remember one thing. Here's how it works. knock on doors, knock on doors, knock on doors. And don't stop knocking on doors until one opens. And when it opens, it's going to take a long time if anybody thinks you're any good. But they'll know right away if you're working hard. So put your head down and work hard, and the rest will happen.
Yeah. Well, that shows itself in your show, Bernie. When I listen to you, I feel like your storytelling is on display. I feel like I'm sitting through a movie. Like, I generally could just sit and close my eyes and visualize like a movie being played as you are doing your monologue or you're telling these stories. And that just shows how you use the English language as an art form to tell a story, and you bring the humor too, which is just fantastic. And you are so good off the cuff as well. And so we praise Rob, and I love Rob, but man, you deserve a lot of praise yourself as well for what you've done in this career of yours and what you continue to do. And what you didn't mention, Bernie, in your Cliff Notes, how dare you, was that you were quite the baseball player as well. And you had quite the career going in that direction too.
Well, I was fortunate enough. I've even got a picture on my Twitter page in a single-A Tampa Tarpon Cincinnati Reds uniform. My minor league career was so ephemeral, that means short, that I don't like to talk about it a lot because no one cares. Okay, no one likes the Al Bundys in life. You know, back you saw Napoleon Dynamite, right? With Uncle Rico,
yeah.
You know,
yeah, for sure.
Back in '82. Okay, so look, I did sign with the Cincinnati Reds in 1979. The scout who signed me, Larry Barton Sr., God rest his soul. I think they shot him after he signed me. Now, I could play a little bit, okay? I was good enough to sign. I ended up having bone chips on my elbow, had difficulty hitting the slider. And after about 27 games, I washed out. But I hurt my arm. They didn't have arthroscopic surgery back then. They had something called butazolidine and cortisone, right? They hold your hand over a flame and they cut you. It was not the same back in 1980. So I still had like 36 units to go back and finish my college degree. But baseball is important to me. I'll tell you why. Because I identify myself as an athlete, and everything I approach in life is as a competition. And I think baseball is a great metaphor for life, because you can hit the ball on the screws 400 feet, and it can be an out. Or you could get sawed off, break your bat, it'll drop in and have a duck fart double. The only thing you can do is keep getting your swings. The other thing that baseball taught me was that nobody I know ever had success in life without being willing to deal with failure. See, in baseball, Brian, there's failure every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
The pitcher fails to throw a strike. The hitter fails to make contact. The fielder fails to make a play. The hitter fails to reach base. And it repeats for 3 hours until someone finally wins. And that teaches you two things. One, failure is never final. And failure is a critical part and component on your way to success. And so you can't control what happens to you in this life, but you can control how you react. And that's the beauty of baseball.
Final thing from me, Bernie, one thing that you do control is the way you script these shows. And when you decide what you're going to include in them, from a humor perspective, from an information perspective, from all right, who are we going to bring on as a guest? Take me through your mindset as you're laying out the show. And when somebody takes in the Bernie Fratto experience, what do you want them to leave with?
Well, first of all, I have had a simple rule in radio, and I've been on the radio since June of '94. So I've logged thousands of hours. When you sign on and do a radio show, the first thing you have to ask yourself when it comes to this subject matter is, why are we talking about this today? Think about it. How many times have you tuned in a show and somebody's talking about something you couldn't care less about, or there doesn't seem to be any relevancy or context? You're going to lose your audience. Why are we talking about this today? Is it topical? All right, then you got to be a keen observer. And what you've got to do is I don't like those people in life that equivocate, right? Have a take, come with it, and stand behind it. Justify with relevant specifics, accurate knowledge, personal experience. I'm just not one of those people that, okay, hey, Bernie, you have a hard time making up your mind? Well, yes and no. No one wants. That's warm dishwater. Okay.
Yeah.
Warm dishwater. So it's a privilege for me to be behind a mic. And even when I was first doing it back in 1994, I took it really serious, and I still do. And so now, as I create a program that people can avail themselves of, because they can listen to me at 11 o'clock Saturday nights, or they can text their girlfriend, or they can go to a movie, whatever. We got competition. But remember, I treat everything as a competition. So my belief is if I can bring you back, you're going to want to hear more. I'm going to leave you wanting more. And you have to realize that when you sign on and you have a blank canvas, it's your domain to make good with what you want. And I'm very grateful because Scott Shapiro, RJ Bell, all the folks associated with the Straight Out of Vegas product have given me complete autonomy and poetic license. They've never once stopped me from doing what I do. But you've got to embrace that power, and I will tell that to anybody that does anything in life. Whether you want to be a salesman, whether you want to be a teacher, or on a radio. You know, Willie Nelson used to tell a story, and it's a true story. I'm always going to make my points with stories, so here's a story. So many, many years ago, Willie Nelson got into pretty serious trouble with the IRS. He joked about it. He owed up, it wasn't that much. It was only like about $32 million. True story, okay? So in the process of dealing with the IRS, he was going to make good.
Yeah.
The IRS was seizing his property, various properties, right? But Willie Nelson says, let me keep my golf course. Let me keep my golf course. He had a beautiful home, and he had a golf course adjacent to it. And somehow he had managed to negotiate. He paid the IRS everything he owed him, and he got to keep his golf course. And the reporter said, Willie, what's the big deal about your golf course? He had a home right up against the 18th hole of his own golf course. He goes, well, the beauty of owning your own golf course is that you get to decide par. You see that 18th hole there? It's a par 14. Yesterday, he goes, it's a par 14, and yesterday I birdied it. So the beauty of being a radio, it's like your own golf course. You sign on, you let her rip, and the audience will decide. But simple, basic, I think, rudiments. Tell the tale, be a keen observer, take the audience behind the curtain, tell them what you think you know based on personal experience, accurate knowledge, relevant specifics, do your research. I've already started researching next week's show. Here's all my stuff, okay? I get home Saturday night, I can't go to sleep. I'm up till 2 or 3. I listen to Jason Martin, and I start typing. I get an idea. This comes from George Carlin. Get an idea? Write it down. Don't wait. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning and something pops in your head. Go write it down. Dick Schaap told me that as well. I got invited to the set of sports reporters. I go, wow, look at all those notes. And he said, Bernie, write everything down. Unless you're going to have a career as a Chinese waiter, write everything down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The one thing I wanted to add, and I spoke too soon, was the RJ Bell connection with you. How you touched on this a little bit briefly, but I would love to dive more into that. How you guys met and why that relationship has worked so well in this brand that you guys are a part of.
Well, I was driving down the road one day. It was late 2011, and Colin Coward was the other network, and he gave his Blazing 5. And he said, at the end of my Blazing 5, we're going to bring in a guy, and he's going to grade my picks. His name is RJ Bell. And the segment just popped. And Colin would say, okay, like Indianapolis -3 over Buffalo, blah, blah, blah. What does Vegas think? Okay, Colin, you've got agreement. Here's why. And then they would disagree. It was electric radio. So I reached out to RJ Bell just the way I reached out to Dick Schaap. We had lunch, became friends, started to correspond. One thing led to another. And then I was doing local shows here in Vegas. And he'd call me after the show and say, man, that was good stuff. And we became kindred spirits because RJ's a thinker. He's a thinker. I mean, this is a guy that went to Ohio State, graduated summa cum laude, had an Oxford scholarship. And he decided to go into this. That makes that fascinating. He could have been a hedge fund trader, could have done a lot of things. He decided to do this, and he's flourished. But we became friends because we are both contrarians in the sense of the way we like to view the world. and we view the world with a slightly I call it a quarter turn. We look at things just a little differently than the average average people do. And so I think we have the creative gene, and we have the competitive gene, and we have the determined gene, and we're kindred spirits.
Yeah, and it's worked magnificently. Loved every single week. I very much look forward to getting to work with you, Bernie. Saturday nights, 11 p.m. to midnight on the West Coast. Bernie Fratto, who brings it as far as great knowledge, humor, storytelling, and he told some really, really great stories. And you will have many more stories to tell this coming Saturday. As more listeners, I'm telling you, you've got to listen to Bernie Fratto. He is really, not only is he so good at what he does, but he's such a nice guy. And he's very friendly and wants to get to know everybody he works with and really cares. It's something that I've noticed about you that really stood out to me, is how you go above and beyond the call of duty to develop that rapport with everybody on the show. That's a testament to you and why I'm always rooting for Bernie Fratto. Bernie, thanks so much for doing this, and I can't wait to talk with you on Saturday. By the way, was it just a mole that told me that on Thursdays you work as a ventriloquist on 3rd and Main?
Actually, they're half, Fred. I work as a piano player in a whorehouse. But one final thought, if you get a second, I'm not going to reread that Dick Schaap letter, because the thing I'm most proud of is he said Bernie Fratto tells the stories that most people don't know about, the stories that bring people in sports to life. And that's coming from a legend. And he wrote that letter in 2000. By that time, Dick and I had known each other about 10 years. It worked about 10 years. So this is ingrained in me, so I appreciate that. And as far as, treating other people, look, simple rule in life. Class never goes out of style. Respect never goes out of style. No one remembers what you said. They don't care what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So try to do my best on that. And I've told you, I've told Chris Perfett, I've told Bill Benson, I've told Ryan Bershinger, I've told Eric Roberts, all the people that have worked on our show. And it was funny because I had Rolf Irvin before you came along. I'm glad we really got this crew together. I still talk to Mike Mayer. Mike did like my first 6 shows, 4 to 6 shows.
He was talking about that. Yeah.
Brian Dennis came in, then Vince Close came in, and then someone else came in, and I think Lita Lapp might have done a couple of shows. And it's funny, I was talking to Scott Shapiro one day, and he goes, I'd been there like 3 months and had 5 producers. And Scott says, Bernie, why do you keep chasing off producers? I said, well, it must be my designer imposter high karate cologne. But the bottom line is, you come in now, we've got you. I've told all you guys, I can't do this show without you. I mean, I might as well be standing in a urinal talking to the wall, because without you, we don't go on the air. Yeah. And I told that to Scott as well, and he says, well, you probably do that as well too. And I go, that's true.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You might just get some of the best ideas for the show while you're standing by a urinal.
Anywhere and everywhere. Any port in the storm.
Yeah. Bernie, thanks so much. Again, I encourage everybody that's checking this out to listen to Bernie every Saturday night, 11 p.m. to midnight on Fox Sports Radio and all the local affiliates out there. Also, Sirius XM Channel 83. Bernie, you're the man. You're the best. Appreciate you, and keep doing the awesome work that I've really, really enjoyed, and I really enjoy getting to work with you.
See you Saturday, Brian. Thanks for having me.